Trask needs it back. He needs the old Mbenga back. He needs his Mbenga boys.
They want us to sneak into a Klingon fleet, but we don't have a cloak. We're just gonna make a few tweaks. We'll fit right in. Perfect.
We're all under the cloak of war. What does that mean? A cloak, it hides things, it confuses things, it obscures things. What does it mean to have a cloak in war? To hide, to be stealthy? What does it mean after the war is done? What are you hiding? Your inner self? Your inner desires? Your shadow? This is Under the Cloak of War. This is episode 8 of season 2 of Strange New Worlds. It's always hard to believe for me when we get this far into a season. And I know there's only 10. We got 2 episodes left to wrap this up. Is that going to be like a 2-parter? Is it going to hook into what was established more with regards to Angel, Cybok, the Gorn in season 1? Who knows? But this episode feels like a good standalone in one way, but also one that keys in to the themes established and emotional character arcs established previously, especially with Mbenga and also with Nurse Chapel. With all that out of the way, let's see what's going on with Under the Cloak of War, episode 8, Strange New Worlds, season 2. Okay, listen, you can't just drop a starship like this on my lap in the first 5 seconds and not show me more. Guys, you just can't do that. We see the Kelsey May right off the bat on screen. There you go. There it is. Plop out onto the table, rolled off of the table. The Kelsey May, what is it? It's a long, slender ship with a non-standard configuration. 1 nacelle, I think, and an underslung sensor dome. Man, what's going on with that? Are we ever going to see more of it? It's just shown, and then it's gone, and then we're on board the ship for the rest of the episode. Don't do this to me, guys. I take these ships seriously. I love my ships, and the Kelsey May, it's not for me, but I need to see more, you know? Seeing more ships in any given Star Trek show, it gives you an idea for the design language that exists in that time period. This being the Strange New Worlds time period. You know, the color schemes, the configurations, the surface details. They're important, and they're different for every era. I would have liked to have seen more of the Kelsey May. Not a big deal in the grand scheme of things. Many of the complaints I'm going to have here, you should note, are small things. They're not important things. Had I been in the writer's room, say, and I said we should have more of that ship, I probably would have been wrong, and they probably would have just cut that out, because it doesn't make any sense to show things that aren't directly impacting the plot. If I had it my way, these plots would be 10 times longer and meandering and confusing. So it's a good thing I'm not in control here. I'm just wearing red. I don't wear command gold for a reason. I'm not to be trusted with certain things. We're transferring over a Klingon general, Dak'Rah, I think his name was, that's it, Dak'Rah. But we're going to skip the formalities, according to him, and call him Ra. We're transporting him to Starbase 12. One small issue, though. Guess who's coming to dinner? It's the Klingons. This is freaking Star Trek 6, Undiscovered Country. Love that movie. This is TNG The Wounded. This is, in a way, Deep Space Nine Duet. Watch all that stuff. I'm not going to spoil any of it here, but you can see the shades of it. We're dealing with war. We're dealing with, most importantly, the aftermath of war. And the personal cost that comes with war, it sticks its teeth into you after the war is done. That's what's so sad about it. It's the pain that comes afterwards, right? Kind of like stabbing your foot with a nail. Sometimes you don't feel it, but then later when you look at the wound and you see the blood, you get scared and then you can feel it. the pain that lingers. That's what this episode is about. And it runs thick through this entire episode. Through its veins. It runs into its brain and its bones and its meat. This whole skeleton ambulating horrifically. The dead people are back. They're back in Mbenga's mind. They're back in the mind of everybody on this ship who served on the moon of Jigao. You see, this Klingon ambassador, by the way, defecting to the Federation. Interesting plot twist. Ra is once a Klingon, considered a war criminal of sorts to the Federation. Defecting to the Federation in hopes to bring peace. Because of a minor protest, the Enterprise is tasked with alleviating tensions between the Federation and this Klingon, thereby requiring our officers to make the absolute best impression. Klingon war vets need to be seen publicly with Ra. I can understand that. This should be up to the captain's discretion, and you can debate until the cows come home whether the captain was wrong in this, but we're sticking vets together with the ambassador. We're putting people wounded from war, mentally as well as physically, in some cases I'm sure, together with the instigator of their own destruction. If they can get along and we're on the flagship, we're sending a message. This is the idea. It's probably Pike's idea, it's Starfleet's idea, and for what it's worth, I believe it's Ra's idea as well. My reading of this is that Ra's feelings are genuine. That's how I felt. I didn't get the sense, like Ortegas would say, that Ra is like a spy or there's some kind of double crossing. It could happen. It could have been the case. But my reading is generally that he is genuine. Okay? He is what he seems on the surface. He's more like a TNG Klingon. In TOS, Klingons were a lot more, we'll say, Machiavellian, if you know what that means. They're a lot more inclined to underhandedness, treachery, and I do miss the TNG Klingons, come on. So it is cool to see them back, although they're back in time, retroactively. TNG Klingons are very cool, but TOS Klingons, shouldn't this be TOS? Forehead ridges. I mean, I know it's spoilers for Enterprise, the augment virus. Viruses, it can be a little hairy, pun intended. Sometimes people can get off, sometimes people can get it worse. Maybe he just passed it by. I don't know. But it's high time we see the TOS Klingons. Again, like I said, love TNG Klingons. Now it's time for TOS Klingons. But this is our resident TNG Klingon style of the day, Ra. For what it's worth, I like him. Our crew doesn't seem to, especially Ortegas, especially Chapel, especially Mbenga. Various degrees of professionality amongst these people. We need to take Ra to dinner, just like in Star Trek 6. If we can have dinner with our enemy, maybe we can live with our enemy as well. That would be the hope. Ortegas mentions, this slaughter at this place, the battle of this place, all these horrible things. Uhura's putting on the Starfleet face, and as Mbenga says, it's a good face. Mbenga is right on that. Reiterating what Pelia said a few episodes ago, or was it last episode? Pelia said, pretend to be the person you want to be, and eventually you'll be that person. And Mbenga says to Ortegas, if you want it to be true, just pretend it to be true, and eventually it will be true. Just put on the Starfleet face. Pretend that everything's okay, and eventually it will be okay. See, it echoes with what Pelia says. We're all in the same tapestry together. We're all different pieces of the same puzzle, working together to create a better final image. Ortegas can't handle this, though. Ortegas is a little bit less mature than you would expect. That's fine. A scene of rampant insubordination, we could say, Stand down, Ortegas. I believe that comes from Una. She refuses to stand down. She exits the dinner. So does Chapel. Chapel, by the way, is engaging in, I don't know what you call it, brief asides with Spock to discuss their relationship. I love you, and I know you need time away from me, and I know you're having difficulty with this. Personally, this doesn't really work for me because I don't understand it. It's not my thing, so I just leave it on the table. I don't really understand it. See, I've never been in love, so I don't know. But for those of you who have, maybe you can understand what it's like to be involved with someone who is seemingly emotionally distant and doesn't understand the things you went through. In this case, Chapel has gone through the Battle of Jagal, on the moon of Jagal, which we'll get into later. The events of Jagal are told to us in sequences of flashbacks. I appreciate the cinematic daring to show the flashback scenes broken up in the way they were. Although, for me personally, I would have liked to have seen a more consistent singular narrative in this flashback rather than have it broken up. Right? So we can have a little bit more details on what was going on with this fight. A little bit more, a little bit of a bird's eye view. Wouldn't it be cool if we can see really what's happening tactically? All of this is pointless. What I'm saying is pointless, and it should probably be cut from the episode because what I want is not really important here. What's important is we hit the emotional beats that these characters need to go on to complete the arc in this episode. I'm sure you know how it works. Jagal is not a statistic, Spock. You don't understand. You wouldn't understand unless you've been there. Although something tells me that if you have been there, you'd understand it even less. And I'm thankful it's not something I could understand personally. I've never been in a combat scenario of that style. So I can't really say from first-hand experience. Although this episode does a great job of selling me on the idea that it is as horrible as it feels from the outside. It's as horrible as it looks from being in the window looking in on it, as I am. I can't imagine what it must be like to live through all that stuff. But however, I know Starfleet should probably have access to the absolute peak of mental health technology. It surprises me that maybe Chapel and Mbenga have this hard a time dealing with it. Maybe there's medication for that. Maybe there's some kind of new advanced therapy. I don't know. Although what I'm saying is not really a major factor in this episode, but you'll note in Star Trek that people tend to get hurt when it's dramatic to get hurt, and when we need them fixed, we can just work miracles on them. I don't know. But we need people to get hurt here. We need to see the on-screen violence, and unfortunately, we may need to see the gore. I don't love it, but it establishes the horror of this war. It sets the stage, which is very important, because the prologue of our interactions with Ra, what happened before, is the plot. Our current day adventure on the Enterprise, as it were in this episode, is nothing happens, really. It's essentially nothing. But the plot occurred in the past. It's like the lore behind this episode is what makes it impactful. Okay, it's what makes it mean something. Mbenga's having a hard time with this. There's something going on with Mbenga. His performance, what's his name, Babs? I think his name is Babs. It's the performance of a lifetime. It's unbelievable. He's acting circles around everybody in this series. I'm sorry to say it, that's just how I feel. I love him in this. That's not to say as a character, the character of Mbenga, that's not to say I love him. Right? I love his performance. I love his physical acting. I love the way he interacts with our other characters. Personal choices, you can judge that separately. Like, I don't really like that he gave away his daughter to a mysterious alien he just met. Or I don't like the whole idea of keeping people in the transporter buffer. It's just weird to me. It's trivializing and strange, but you may feel different. Like I said, that's a detail that's not super important to this plot, except for when they're at the camp on Jagal, and we see this in a flashback, told in numerous different occasions through this episode, so we'll just get it over with now. Chapel arrives on Jagal. we meet Buck, played by Clint Howard. By the way, Star Trek royalty, Clint Howard. He's been there since TOS. He's I feel like he's not getting enough credit. I feel like one of these days in Star Trek, we got to have Clint Howard playing a role every episode. Like we got to have Clint Howard as a regular cast. Can we do that? Star Trek Legacy. This show they've been batting around for a while. Who knows if this is ever going to come to fruition? A show taking place like after Star Trek Picard, kind of like in that universe. We need Clint Howard on the bridge every episode. Can we do it? Is it possible? Sorry for getting off track. He's kind of like one of the head doctors here. And just the characterization of these characters in these flashbacks, it's so rich. It's so deep with almost no dialogue. We see Buck, we know immediately everything about him. We see Trask, we know everything about him. The Andorian guy. This kid, the people they can't save, the civilians. It's horrible. But like I said, Transporter is involved in Benga. I don't know if this may be where he got the idea to do this to his daughter, or if his daughter was already having this going on before this time, I should say. I don't know the exact timeline. The episode doesn't actually give the exact timeline. It just says some time ago or something like that. Again, not important. We can't help this guy. We'd have more people coming in the transporter. We'll just put him in the buffer. And then delete the transport issue or whatever it was called. And then he'll be stored in the backlog. Great. Later on, we have people coming in. We don't have enough power to do this. We need more. We have to purge the backlog. This means, Chapel knows this, we're going to kill the guy we kept in the backlog before, in the transport buffer. And Benga, no hesitation, beep, deletes him. What did you do? I'm saving lives. We're saving lives by taking lives. We're winning by losing. But in war, everybody loses. To engage in war is to lose. You cannot win. You can only have an outcome that's slightly less bad than your opponent. We're in a race to the bottom to see who can lose least once we've engaged in this. I believe, to paraphrase something from TNG, you've already lost the second you've engaged in it. Not the exact words, but it's something like that, and it's something I really take to heart. So to lose less, we need to selectively lose. To get the big win, we need to pick losers and winners. You know, we all have to take somebody else's lives into our hands, and we have to deal with that. We have to kill to not kill. That juxtaposition is at the heart of what's making this conflict, and I suppose all conflict, so confusing, so foggy. You've heard the fog of war. It's thick here on Jagal. And Mbenga plays it up perfectly on screen. You can see him acting with his eyes, with his face. You can see the pain. A very physical actor. He has a conversation with another young Starfleet member. He calls himself a soldier. How sad that is in this moment. What are we doing here? The Starfleet pep talk from Mbenga is fantastic. We're doing this so that other people can feel safe. What do we do when we introduce a character like this? We introduce a young, innocent character. We kill them. We kill this character that Mbenga was talking to. This kid. I want to call him a kid because the innocence is rife. But he goes on that mission. I'm a soldier. Thanks for the pep talk. Thanks for patching me up. But I'm not questioning orders. It could be that this meat grinder we're going into, it could be that this one final offensive is what seals the deal. It could be. And he selflessly takes up that challenge and then later dies. And Mbenga has to see that. You know, it's just these little moments in these flashbacks is what makes it good. These little moments with characters we just meet and then we feel like we know everything about them. It's expertly crafted, the way this is done. Trask, the Andorian fellow, he seems kind of like the head of the operations here. He has new orders. We're doing one big push, one offensive. This is going to seal the deal for Jigal. We're going to take over Jigal if we can do this. Mbenga, I need the old Mbenga back. I was quit when I walked in here, and I'm twice as quit now. That's the vibe I was getting. He wants him to make, Protocol 12? That juice we saw a few episodes ago, maybe in the first episode of this season, you take and it just turns you into a killing machine. Turns out pumping your body full of adrenaline and painkillers is really bad for you. So it's banned by Starfleet and in the Federation, I suppose. Thank you. But Mbenga has some. Trask needs it back. He needs the old Mbenga back. He needs his Mbenga boys. Come on. I need you to go in there, and I need you to take care of this guy Ra. This is the final push. We need Mbenga back. Mbenga does go back. He does take the knife. Klingon knife. What is it called? A Dictog? Takes it off one of the corpses in his encampment. And goes to town on some Klingons. But we're going to leave it at that. Until we get further on in the review, where we can finish off that thought in a more meaningful way. Back to the dinner scene. Mbenga's walking out. Ra grabs him. I was like, whoa, what's going on here? Ra grabs his arm. I heard you guys practice, you and your security officer practice like full contact Makbara, which is like a Klingon martial arts, turned in this case exercise. I'll pencil you in for whenever we can do it. And in the truest sense of the warrior caste, we bond over battle. But in this case, we've subverted the zenith of the battle to use it to break the ice, to better know each other. And we bond Mbenga and Ra over Makbara. Full contact sport, punching and kicking, what have you. I don't know all the details. But we see another side of each other. You know, we let our guard down, ironically, when our guard should be up in battle. Isn't that curious? I heard you killed your own men. Is it true that you killed your own men? This is why you're the butcher of Jigal. Is that true? Who fought the hardest? He says who he thought fought the hardest. It's not exactly important at this time, but look at Mbenga, look at the eyes. There's something going on. We all should have caught it beforehand. I didn't catch it. For those of you who have seen it and saw the ending coming, great. I didn't see it coming. Maybe I'm just more mentally innocent than you. You see, he's referred to as the Butcher of Jigal. It turns out that's what you would call stolen valor, to use a term du jour. You see, a Klingon in their culture, we'll say, to put it in very general terms, they view the physical victory at battle as an honor, not as something to be guilty of. Mbenga, in this case, views that as something to be guilty of, something that's painful, to be turned into a monster. Like you said, to go home different, to go home a changed person. That's not what his family deserves. That's not what he wanted. But he saw now that to not do that is impossible. He uses the Protocol 12. He goes in, slaughters 3 Klingon warriors. Mbenga was the Butcher of Jigal. He left like a shadow, like a ghost, didn't say anything. Dak'Rah took the credit. Using that as leverage to help his case with the Federation. He's willing to kill his own Klingon warriors. He's willing to, in the heat of battle, have a change of heart. He's willing to live a lie to support the possibility of peace. And the big question here, the big underlying question of this episode is, are you willing to live with a lie if there is a chance it can create peace? So we're challenging this idea of Starfleet officers not lying. We're challenging Spock. We're challenging logic. We're challenging reason, perhaps. But I would say, maybe, it is reasonable to live a lie. It means having peace. I can live with it. Our final confrontation between Mbenga and Ra, there's so much. You could interpret it your way and be right. I can interpret it my way and be wrong. It is crafted in such a way that there is enough ambiguity that it could create discussion forever, and it could also create a hook for another episode in the future. Maybe another episode could show this from a different point of view, but you can see Mbenga looking at his Klingon knife. Warning signs, warning, whoa. Mbenga held on to that knife. Why is he holding on to the knife? That's kind of creepy. His war memorabilia. He can't put it past him. He's carrying the knife with him. He's looking at it in that moment. Ra comes into the medbay to talk to him. It seems my time here is being cut short. It was decided amongst the crew and brought to the captain by way of Una that we need to cut this journey short. Here's a faster way we can get through this nebula. If we do this, we can get rid of this ambassador sooner. Pike goes along with it. Pike, who wanted so badly for the Klingon war vets to be seen with this ambassador. Now we're going backwards on it. We're having misgivings. And you can look at this and say Pike was wrong. You can look at this and say anybody on the crew was wrong. It's an unrelenting force meeting an immovable object. It is pain. It is justice. It is payback. But most importantly, is it the possibility of peace if we can get along with Ra? Mbenga can't get along with Ra. It all comes to a head. Please leave me alone. Ra's explaining how he had a change of heart. He wants to put it behind him. We all need to heal. I believe him, by the way. And he had to do this. He had to physically contact Mbenga. This is an intervention in a way. Interventions are scary. You have to push people out of their comfort zone, because sometimes our comfort zone can actually be bad. Okay, it can be like slipping into a warm bath of hate and rage. You can get comfortable with how mad you are, and that's extremely sad, and it's very sad for Mbenga. And I genuinely believe Ra is pushing against Mbenga for this reason. We need to actually get this over with now. And he's pushing him, and Mbenga, he takes it the wrong way. He brings up the past, he insinuates, he says, you gave the order to kill those people. Well, yes, but at the same time, put on the Starfleet face. It's a good face. Can't speak from experience. I can only say what I can say. I can only say what the official tack on this would be, and that would be let it go. But it's an extremely complicated and thorny issue that we broached here. It's a very thoughtful episode. It's deep. Ra is not a mustache twirling villain. They get into a fight. It comes to fisticuffs. We see Chapel's point of view from behind a medical barrier like that blurs the image. So convenient, so genius to show it this way. So that the visuals of the episode are an unreliable narrator for the truth in this moment. We see a blurry image of Mbenga and Ra, and it appears like Mbenga stabs Ra, and he's dead. Just getting it out there. We've killed the ambassador. We've made things a lot worse, and I'll be damned if I can't blame Mbenga. It's so sad, but there's going to be an inquiry about this. and M'Benga is to blame. But you'll note, if you watch the episode very closely, there's hidden imagery put into this episode, I believe on purpose, to establish the idea that the events that took place behind that curtain would not be what they were portrayed to be in the context of the episode, literally. What do I mean by that? Ra is seen carrying a cane. He uses a cane to walk. He puts the cane down to engage in Makbara. He's more virile than he seems. He's standing there. Look at his legs. You can see that he can't stand well. He's wobbling. Why would they show that other to potentially insinuate that Ra could have fallen on the knife? And now you're saying, well, why did M'Benga admit to killing him that way? We've already established the idea that you can take blame for something that you didn't do in order to bring yourself closure. Right? It fits in with the theme of the episode. Let's just say what went on behind that curtain. There was a struggle. He was showing him the knife. This is how I killed him. I killed him like this. Look. We didn't hear that. Ra, he can't stand right. Ra is old. He fell over onto the knife. And M'Benga made up his mind, I'm going to take the blame because I want to have killed him. Much in the same way I didn't want to kill those Klingon warriors. Much in the way that Ra wanted to take the blame for something he didn't do. Killing his own Klingon brethren. You can say it's to hedge his bets with the Federation. You can say he believed the Federation was going to win and needed those points. Doesn't matter. As long as we're working towards peace. A final conversation between Pike and M'Benga ensues. Pike is so disappointed. I can't believe Ra would attack M'Benga. La'an gives him a side eye. Why does the camera linger on La'an looking at him like that? He gives him the evil eye for a moment. She gives it to him. Is something here not what it seems? Are we hiding something? Does La'an know more about what happened than she's letting on? We're leading Pike to believe that Ra attacked first. I don't know if I got that impression. But in the discussion between Pike and M'Benga says, I killed him. I did it. And ultimately, I don't feel bad about it. Very damning thing to say. But Pike has the privilege of seeing the good in people, according to M'Benga, and M'Benga sees the worst in people. And it's such an evolution for M'Benga's character, and it cuts to the core of the Klingon War in a way that I haven't seen in a while, without undermining what would happen later. We know that we can't change the course of history too much on the relations between the Klingon Empire and the Federation too much now, because we're still in the quote-unquote TOS era. So we do leave it in a somewhat neutral position. We killed this ambassador, but we have an out. He was a defector, so maybe the Klingons don't care. See, we can get away with it in that way. So, you know, they're crossing their T's and dotting their I's here, at least in that regard. But what's going to happen after this point? Very curious. I could have used a two-parter here, guys. I don't know, because there's a lot to chew on here, and it's an episode I've been thinking about reeling from. An episode that really hurt me, but in a good way, in a challenging way, in a way that no matter what you think, no matter what answer you come up with, there's an equally moral and opposite counter-argument, which it harkens back to how Star Trek used to be, right? Crazy that we can have this episode in Strange New Worlds. It's in a totally different universe from the last few episodes. Comedy episode, comedy. This. It does dour, painful, and agonizing in the right ways for me, as opposed to what we've seen so far, say, in Picard Season 1 or Season 2, which was agonizing for the wrong reasons, painful for the wrong reasons, boring. Reviewing those old shows is not a part of this review. If you love them, that's fantastic. But this episode, for me, it hits all the right points towards creating a thoughtful, dramatic, and painful episode in all the right ways, in ways that we haven't seen yet so far in quote-unquote new Trek. The episode is not perfect, far from it. We end the episode showing Mbenga looking at a biobed that hasn't quite been right since their conflict with the Gorn last season. We see him trying to fix it at the beginning of the episode. And then at the end of this episode, he thinks he finally has it fixed. But then he says sometimes things break in a way that cannot be fixed. They have to stay that way. Things can only be fixed so far, but you cannot fix the underlying problems. They break in a way that it cannot be made perfect again. Just like Mbenga. He fell off that wall, and all the King's men tried to put him back together again, but they couldn't find that one missing piece. So he's never going to be perfect again. Such is war. Although, at the last moment, you can see the biobed flash like it's going to break again. There's something about that. There's something about what just happened that is saying something I don't quite understand. Biobed's broken. He goes on his emotional journey. He fixes it. At the last moment, it looks like it's going to break again. What does that mean? Thematically, it's just kind of something dangling out there. They put it in right at the end. It kind of freaked me out a little bit. I thought something was happening to the ship. I don't know. Is it less ambiguous than I'm making it out to be? Am I making a mountain out of a molehill here? But there's something about that biobed. There's something about the events that took place in the fight scene between Mbenga and Ra that we don't know everything about. We're not privy to. There's something about Leanne looking around, side-eyeing Pike the way she did. There's just something about it. That about covers it for the broad strokes of this fine episode. A few quirks here and there. Why were they trying to create Ractagino for our Klingon ambassador by synthesizing the cup in which it came in? I don't know. How long have they had this recipe? Since the first episode when they met those Klingons? Why do we need to create the cup? Why don't we just get a cold cup? Can we not put the cup in the refrigerator beforehand? I know he's showing up with Spock unawares, and it's at the heat of the moment type thing. Oh, we need to get this drink done now. But it just seemed a little strange to me. Like, why are we showing it burning his hand? What am I supposed to take out of that? I don't know. It's interesting that visually it references Spock grabbing the teacup with his now human hands and burning them. Is this supposed to draw a line of the correlation between Spock and this Klingon ambassador? What does that mean? I don't really know. I don't know why the scene was really there. It just seems like a silly problem to have. Oh, we accidentally made it too hot. I don't know. There's lines from Ambassador Ra. He says, somebody says something about Klingons, and then he says, "Oh, don't worry about Klingons. They're like a backwards war-thirsty culture." And I was just like, ugh, ew. I did not appreciate that. And he says that he's showing just blatant, in-your-face disrespect for his own culture, self-deprecating stuff. I never enjoy that. And then later on, he's talking about, at the dinner scene, having a discussion with Spock about comparing Sun Tzu to Klingon literature. And then he references something happened with his father that he was fond of, where he taught him about yada yada yada. And I'm just thinking, like, is this the same Ambassador Ra that was just putting down Klingon culture? Like it didn't matter, like belittling it? Like, which is it? Like, that, when he first comes onto the ship, that sequence of events, it felt like it was written by a different person. I don't know what it is, but there was a lot of strange lines out of Ra that made me wonder, and maybe I'm just too stupid to understand it, but could that have been there as an intentional red herring to support the theory that he could have been a spy all along? It's just to throw you off. It's just a red herring. If I were a spy, I'd do something like that. I would just try to confuse people. Throw them off my scent. See, I hate Klingons. I'm a Klingon, but Klingon culture's stupid. What do you think about that? You know, sowing the seeds of chaos. I mean, I'm just spitballing here. And it could have just been written like that because it was an actual error on the writing staff, and they just didn't really think about it and didn't really care, or it was just an oversight. I don't want to dig too down deep into it because it's not super important. It's just something I noticed on rewatching this episode and trying to look at it from a different point of view. Try to watch this episode from the point of view that Ra is right, and then watch it again believing that M'Benga is right about everything. To see it both ways. Always build up the best possible case for the counter argument to your argument in order to see everything from every point of view so that you can get the bird's eye view of the whole problem and really be able to make tactically wise decisions going forward. That's the only thing you can do here. Pike says that's why we have tribunals. That's why we have the Federation Diplomatic Corps. We can't solve these things on our own. It is too complicated. We need the mediation of cooler heads. And unfortunately, that's what we didn't get here. That's what we didn't get with M'Benga. Sad. Visually, the scenes on Jugal I thought looked fantastic. I thought they looked really cool. I mean, I can't even really tell that this is some kind of green screen or something. I don't know. But this is some kind of new projection technology I know they've introduced since Discovery. Maybe they're making use of it here, but these scenes look truly large to me. The battle looked big. Would have liked to have seen more of it, but that would be outside the scope and purview of this episode and what it was trying to establish. It was cool to see the Kelsey May, although I didn't see nearly enough of it. We'll just call it a tease. Visually, I'm gonna go yes on it. Musically, it would have been cool to have some kind of thumping, cool, unique melody to the flashback scenario to better establish the feeling of the combat, I think. But the general silence of the thing also goes towards the feeling of loneliness, of detachment, of anger and rage. Maybe that's what they were going for, and I'm looking at the whole thing the wrong way. But musically, this one was a bit of a dud. Thematically, like I said, how much of a lie are you willing to live if there's a chance for peace? If we fight Ra to get revenge, to get payback, to get justice, whatever you want to call it, those people who died can't die again. But the people in the future, they can die. So if you go along with Ra, is there a chance the people in the future might not die? Is there a chance? If there's even a small chance, in my view, we have to take it. That's my view. If you had the opposite view, you're just as right as this. Or you're just as wrong. There's no way to really know. We're in a moral impasse here. You can question the judgment of the Federation allowing a Klingon, we'll call him war criminal, access to the Federation as an ambassador. You can question that judgment. But at this exact moment in time, do you feel that there's a virtue in extending any kind of an olive branch to our own enemy at this moment on the Enterprise to say we can get along with them? If it means one person might not die. M'Benga says, what about the people he killed? He killed civilians. He gave the order. Don't people deserve to pay for their actions? I can go back and forth all day, so I'm just going to end that here. Feel free to take the ball and run with it, though. But thematically, every beat, every note is in tune, except for what was going on at the very beginning. Like I said before, it was a little strange. Plot-wise, it all takes place in the flashback. The plot was a bare-bones plot only to establish, like I said, the emotional beats our characters need to hit. So plot, there's not much going on here. It included a brief flashback, I believe, at the beginning of the episode to the Battle of the Binary Stars. Didn't need to see that again from the very first, 1 or 2 episodes of Star Trek Discovery. That wasn't yesterday, was it? Well, it doesn't feel like it anymore. So we're winning on visuals, theme, but our plot and our music, there's just a lot left on the table. We can say that. And that knife was left on the table. And Mbenga had it on the table. He was looking at it. He already had it out before Ra came. What was he thinking about? Why did he keep it? A bit of a sticking point for me in this episode. Hopefully Mbenga wouldn't stick the point of that knife into me. If there's a non-zero chance that could happen again, should Mbenga be on the ship? I don't know. McCoy has to show up at some point. With all that out of the way, your guys are going to have a lot to chew on had you watched this whole review. That was Under the Cloak of War. And I'm going to have to go ahead and give this episode a 6.5 out of 10. This episode isn't going to work for everybody. It kind of worked for me. Wasn't perfect. Had some strange issues, especially at the beginning. Got better as it went along. I have a feeling I may enjoy it more in the future on rewatches. This one's going in the rewatch pile. So that's a pretty good endorsement for me, I'd say. I'm Lieutenant Mark, and I'm going to see you when next time I see you. So long.